What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So we are 2 weeks into the new format with Into the Inklands, discounting that first weekend because, well, not everyone had their cards immediately and people were still testing out and figuring things out. Not to say this second weekend people weren't still figuring things out, but we're going to go ahead and we use inkdex.com to track tournament results. I see a lot of channels do a great job covering top 8s. However, I don't think you should cover a top 8 at an event of 20 people. So I came up with this little formula to see what counts as a top for this video. Then we'll go over the total pie chart. There's 62 decks that qualified, or at least were shown. And in addition to that, we have our updated tier list at the end if you would like to stick around. The pictures are all there, so you can skip right to it if you want, but make sure you listen if you're interested in the reasonings. So if an event had 2 to 10 players, I only took first place. 11 to 20 players, top 2. 21 to 40 players, top 4. And then 41 to 99, we went with top 8. There was a 178 person event, and since it's more than 100, we do take the top 16. These numbers kinda came from never having more than 20% count as top cut. However, at least 10% counts in each of them. That is where the general numbers came from, if anyone is wondering. So I said there were 62 tops. What were they? Well, unfortunately, Ruby Amethyst is still the deck to beat. With 19 out of the 62 tops, 31%. They got new things such as Jim Hawk and Space Traveler, the Queen's Castle. They have Prince Eric, Expert Helmsman as another card, Madame Medusa, among other cards that are very strong, just already adding to arguably, well, not arguably, hands down, the best deck from last format. I said it in my original tier list. This deck was the sleeper deck of the format, or so I thought. I didn't think it would catch on so fast. I said this deck is going to be tier 1. People need to be ready for it. And that was Amethyst Emerald Bounce Tempo Control. Whatever you want to call it. You start out aggro quick, and you can actually play against aggro very well. Or you can play a longer game and resource manage with things like Ursula double singing your friends on the other side to draw 4 cards. Or your mother knows best to bounce 2. This deck has been so much fun. It's my main competitive deck personally, and with 11 tops, they take up 19%. Another color combination, I should say, taking up that 19% with 11 spots is Emerald Steel. And this deck, Beast OTK, was hyped up crazy. However, I don't think it had any tops yet. Discard had a couple, but Shift Control has proven to be the best way to play these 2 colors, abusing things like Morph being able to go into Tinkerbell, Beast Tragic Hero, your Robin Hood, your Cinderella, your Hercules, among other things if you really want, but it means you don't need to play your Knight in Training Cinderella. You don't need to play the Tiny Tactician. You can still play these cards, but they're no longer required. As a 1-drop, you're still going to play your beloved Outlaw Robin Hood. And again, Beast Tragic Hero on turn 3 is very much a power move in this current game. Another deck that was just hyped crazily. I have an updated Beast OTK deck that I have been absolutely loving. It will be up on the channel probably next week at some point. But another deck that had all the hype heading in, and, well, it hasn't quite lived up to it. Amethyst Steel, Jafar's New World. This combo is very deadly when it goes off. The problem is it's a turn 6, turn 5 combo to get your 7 lore. Turn 6 is really when you close the game out. So kind of like Beast OTK, it takes a long time to set this up. I do think both of those decks can see a resurgence once they get more optimized. Being a longer turn-based deck, you need to figure out how to optimally play your first 5 turns to get you to that point on a consistent basis. Not just get you to that point, but you have to get to that point on your terms so you can play your cards how you want to. You might make it to turn 5 or 6, but if your opponent is dictating the tempo and you can't play your cards in the order you want and you're answering your opponent's board continually, you're probably not going to set up your combo in the process. With 5 spots and 8%, 13% and 8 spots for the Jafar deck, by the way. Amber Steel with 5 spots, 8%. 4 of these were Steel Song. 1 was just the color combination crammed together. I actually did a Bodyguard aggro deck with these 2 colors for my son. That's up on the channel if you want. But Steel Song coming in as our 5th best deck. Ironically, these were my top 5 decks in my tier list. I did, however, have the Green Steel deck as number 5, and I clearly wasn't quite right there. If you move Green Steel back to 5 and just bump up the other 2, that's the top 5 I had predicted. So 1 weekend, looking good. Again, it's going to be a long couple months and a lot of changes are going to happen. I'm excited to see where everything goes to. Sapphire Steel came in with 3, so the Resist deck is still alive. It came in with 3 tops, 5%. Amber Sapphire, Blue Song, if you will. I don't know how song heavy these decks were, but that's another deck I have in the works for you guys. Blue Song was going to play Sleepy's Flute with it, but we ended up tanking it out. You use the Blue Songs to ramp and let it go to deal with your opponent's boards, while using a lot of the strong Amber cards in the process. Ruby Sapphire had 2 spots, and Amber Emerald came in with 1. So that is our pie chart. So what does the updated tier list look like? This is what I have it sitting at right now. Ruby Amethyst Control being a tier 1 deck, no brainer, along with your Amethyst Emerald Bounce Control, Tempo, however you want to play it again, as another threat. Shift Control coming from the Emerald Steel deck, and Jafar's New World rounding out our tier 1 category. Steel Song, while being noticeably better than the other tier 2 decks, I do think that there is a gap at the moment between it and the 4 decks above it, so it is going to go as the top of tier 2. This is a tier 1.5 deck if you're into the half tier stuff. Blue Steel Resist is the kind of would be the best tier 2 deck if we move Steel Song kind of between the 2 tiers, and then our Green Steel discard is there. I've been critical of this deck more than one time. I said Bucky and Prince John could get cut and this deck could still do fine. I'll say I was half wrong instead of saying half right, because I was skeptical on the deck. Prince John has been proven to be obsolete at this point. He is not being played very often. However, Bucky still comes in and he does work. I underestimated Bucky for this deck. Location Control or Pirates. This is a Ruby Steel mix. They're kind of 2 different decks if you want. You can play more of a Pirates in a pure sense. Deck on the channel, kind of common theme here. And Location Control, deck on the channel, kind of common theme here. I think Location Control is definitely better than the Pirate deck. My Pirates was like a strict Pirate deck, not optimal color choices, but it's fun. Really, really fun. I'm going to take it to locals and just have a blast. But Location Control is a very strong deck, and I think it's kind of slept on. Jim Hawkins and RLS Legacy feels so good being able to come down on turn 5. Ruby Amethyst Aggro, I think this deck's kind of falling off. We're not really in a format where aggro seeing a ton of success, so I don't think most of their players are playing it this way. I still have Beast OTK as a tier 2 deck. I think the potential is still there, like I said. However, instead of being at the top of tier 2, this deck has been slipping down, and unless it starts to get figured out soon, it will continue to move down. Ruby Sapphire, less Popsicle Patrol now, but Popsicle Control. One of these videos I'm going to say that correctly, I promise. Popsicle Control. I don't think we're really calling the deck that anymore, but the Ruby Sapphire deck, what it's morphed into, just because they had a couple results this week, I want to put them on notice and put them up in tier 2. Same with Blue Song. That's why both these decks are here instead of Rogue, because they actually saw a little success. Were they smaller tournaments? Sure, but let's see what happens. Maybe they go back down to Rogue next week. Then we have our Mufasa Roulette. I think this deck is better than Green Fasa, very slightly. I had both of these at the back of tier 2 and said, I want to see what happens. I was told that I am very much underestimating them, and maybe that's still true. But 1 week in, I'm going to leave Mufasa Roulette here and put Green Fasa at the top of Rogue. Our Rogue is filled with aggro. Amber, Amethyst, Hyper Aggro being down in this category. We have our Anti-Song Aggro. That's the Lilo picture, by the way. Anti-Song Aggro as another Rogue deck. I think that it might be better than Amber Amethyst, however. We have Amber Emerald Discard. Also a fun deck, but it's more of a fun deck. It is going to be a Rogue deck that you can have fun with at locals. You could win a locals. I would not be surprised at all. Amethyst Steel Aggro. Again, we're not in really a place where aggro can succeed at the moment. We're going to have to see how decks change. Just steel is so prevalent right now and powerful that it really makes aggro-focused strategies tough. It really puts it into this weird like bottle that you can get out the bottleneck, but it's going to be a tougher journey to do so. Amethyst Emerald Aggro, again, aggro decks not in the best spot right now. So this is my current tier list. This is where the meta stands after 1 week. We'll be back next week to cover what happens next week. In addition to that, we will add on and have a running total for these decks. Thank you guys for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Take care.